Hello and welcome to Skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Driti and I have a question for you. Can a war fought thousands of kilometers away very quietly change your salary, your income, your taxes, your visa, your travel plans, and your family's entire future? Well, today's Skyline, it is not just about a war. It is about your money, your career, your travel, your investment, and your future. We'll explain everything in simple words and why it matters to you. For the last few days, the world has been breathing a little easier. The missiles have slowed down. The headlines have become slightly less frightening. Oil prices have fallen. Stock market has bounced back. Many people, they believe the crisis is over now. But is it the reality? Well, sadly I have to say that, not according to Washington. US President Mr. Donald Trump has confirmed that America is holding what he called very deep talks with Iran to prevent another military confrontation. And at the very same time, the White House has issued a clear warning. If diplomacy fails, the US is ready to return to military action immediately. American military forces remain on high alert across West Asia. Now, you might be thinking, why should an Indian living in Delhi, Mumbai, New York, California, Toronto, or Dubai care about all these talks happening, right? Because this isn't just about missiles. This is about one of the world's most important waterways, the Strait of Hormuz. In fact, this story is not just about Indians, it includes Americans too. Every single day, about 1/5 of the global oil and natural gas moves through this particular narrow stretch of water. If ships cannot pass safely, oil prices could become uncertain. The moment that happens, prices begin to rise across the globe. And that is exactly what happened during the recent fighting. Oil prices climbed close to $100 a barrel, and that's massive. Then came the pause in the attacks. Suddenly, oil prices dropped. Markets recovered, but shipping through the Strait of Hormuz, that is still nowhere near normal. Here, experts say that traffic remains well below its usual level, and if negotiations collapse, everything could change again. Let me make you understand why the matter is so important. India imports most of the crude oil that it uses. When oil becomes more expensive, India pays more dollars to buy the energy. That weakens the rupee. Petrol and diesel become costlier, transportation costs rise, food prices could increase in India. So inflation goes up. Every household begins to feel the pressure, and that is why the Indian stock market reacted immediately when news of temporary pause emerged. The Sensex jumped by more than 770 points. The Nifty also moved sharply higher. In the meantime, investors celebrate because they believe that energy prices might remain under control. Well, at least for now here. But yes, there is another side to this story. Many Indians living in the US work in tech sector. Higher oil prices don't just affect the petrol, they also influence inflation. When inflation stays high, the US Federal Reserve becomes less likely to cut the interest rate. That means loans remains expensive. Companies become more cautious, hiring slows down, technology investment reduce. Stock prices face pressure. Suddenly, a conflict happening in West Asia begins affecting somebody working at Google, Amazon, Microsoft, or Meta. And the impact does not stop there, by the way. Shipping companies are already taking longer routes because of security concern in Red Sea and nearby waters. Longer routes mean higher fuel prices. Higher fuel costs means higher transport charges. Well, those costs eventually reach consumers. Whether you are buying electronics in America or groceries in India, global conflicts slowly find their way into your wallet. And that is why financial experts are warning investors to not celebrate too early. Yes, markets have recovered. Yes, oil prices have fallen, but the whole situation that remains extremely fragile. One failed negotiation, one military strike, one blockade, and the entire global economy could once again find itself under pressure. Lesson is simple here. Today's wars are no longer limited to the battlefield. They affect your investment, your salary, your home loan, your mutual interest, and even the value of your savings. And that is why everyone, be it American or Indian, must pay attention to what happens thousands of kilometers away. And yes, speaking of the taxes, let's talk about hidden US tax trap that could take away 40% of your family's wealth. Most people working in America worry about one thing: income tax. Every month, tax is deducted from their salary. Every year, they file tax return and they believe their responsibility ends there. But what if I told you that there is another tax? One that most Indians have never heard of. One that does not apply while you are alive. It applies after you're gone. And for many Indian families, it came as a devastating surprise. It is called the US Federal Estate Tax. Let me make you understand. Suppose an Indian software engineer spent years working in the US. They receive company shares from employers like Amazon, Google, Meta, Nvidia, or Microsoft. Slowly, these shares become very, very valuable, maybe worth $200,000, maybe $500,000, maybe even more. Something looks secure. But if that family person dies while still classified as non-US citizen for state tax purpose, a completely different tax system comes into play. Here, most Americans receive estate tax exemption worth millions of dollars. But for many foreign nationals, including many Indians on temporary work visa, the exemption is dramatically smaller, just $60,000. And that number hasn't changed for decades. Let me tell you how serious this is. Suppose somebody has accumulated $500,000 worth of company shares after years of working in the tech industry. Only the first $60,000 may be protected here. The remaining value can become subject to federal estate tax with rates that may go as high as 40%. Well, that could mean a large portion of the family's wealth disappears before their spouse or their child receive anything. Now, here's the most shocking part. Many Indian professionals believe that the India-US double taxation agreement, it protects them. No, it does not. That agreement deals mainly with income tax. It does not generally remove the US federal estate tax exposure for Indian nationals. Even your company's HR department may never discuss this. Your salary, your bonuses, your restricted stock unit, everything may look perfectly organized while you are working. But estate planning is an entirely different subject. If proper planning is not done, your family could face legal paperwork, frozen investment account, and significant tax obligation during one of the most difficult moments of your lives. And yes, experts here say that this is exactly why overseas Indians should not think about earning wealth. They should also think about protecting it. That means reviewing manufacturing details. That means understanding cross-border tax rules, seeking professional estate planning advice when it is necessary, and making sure the next generation does not lose a large part of what took decades to build. Because earning money is difficult, but protecting it is as important. Now let's hop on to our war story. Our next story is not about soldiers that are standing face to face on the battlefield. It is about satellites orbiting thousands of kilometers above the Earth. It is about intelligence, tech, information, and experts here say that this could be the future of modern warfare. For decades, countries fought wars with tanks, fighter jets, and missiles. Today, wars are only being fought with data, satellites, and AI. The country that controls information often gains an advantage here even before the first missile is launched. And that is exactly why the latest developments, including the US, Russia, and Iran, are attracting global attention. The whole controversy began after reports claimed that Russia may have provided satellite intelligence connected to military activity involving Iran. Well, according to the statements made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, intelligence agencies tracked Russian satellites passing over important military locations in West Asia. Soon after those satellite movement, some of the same locations reportedly became targets during Iranian military planning. Now, these allegations have raised serious questions around the globe. In the meantime, when journalists asked the US President, Mr. Trump, about these reports, he did not dismiss them. Instead, he said that he would personally ask Russian President Vladimir Putin about all these allegations. Well, it was a short answer, but it raised a powerful message. If two of the world's biggest powers are discussing satellite intelligence at the highest political level, It shows how important space technology has become in today's conflict. This story is much bigger than Russia and Iran, by the way. It is about how wars are changing. Today, satellites monitor troop movement, track ships, observe the military bases, and provide real-time information. That intelligence can help armies make faster decisions. In some cases, satellites become as valuable as fighter aircraft because they provide the eyes in the sky. Without accurate information, even the strongest military can struggle to respond quickly. Here, experts say that modern missile systems, they are no longer dependent on just one navigation network. They can receive signals from multiple satellite systems operating around the globe. And this makes them more accurate and harder to stop. At the very same time, governments are investing billions of dollars to protect their own satellite network from cyber attack and electronic warfare. Now, you may wonder what this means for the ordinary Americans. Well, the answer is very simple. Whenever countries increase spending on defense technology, they also invest more in cybersecurity, AI, cloud computing, and satellite infrastructure. In the meantime, companies working in these sectors often receive more government contracts. Investors closely watch these developments because they can influence global tech stocks and future business opportunities. And yes, there is an important point here. Countries are beginning to treat tech as a matter of national security now. Highly skilled engineers, cyber experts, AI researchers, satellite specialists are becoming strategic assets now. Immigration policies, hiring decisions, and even international partnerships are increasingly being shaped by geopolitical competition rather than just business needs now. Well, the battlefield is changing rapidly. It is no longer limited to land, sea, or air. Space has become a new frontier. The next major conflict may not begin with a missile launch. It could begin with a satellite silently collecting information hundreds of kilometers away above the Earth's surface. Now, from satellites in space, let's now come back to something much closer to home. If you are an Indian living in America and keeping money in an Indian bank, you could be paying more taxes than you actually need to. Indians living in the US continue to keep their savings in India. Some have fixed deposit, others receive rent from property back home. Many also maintain NRO account to manage their income in India. Most people believe that whatever tax the bank deducts is the final amount they have to pay. But that is not always true. In fact, thousands of NRIs may be paying much more tax than they are required to because they are unaware of these rules. Let me explain how it really works. Whenever interest is earned on an NRO account, Indian banks generally deduct tax deducted at source or TDS before the money reaches your account. Many Indians see this deduction every year and assume that nothing can be done about it. But there is an important agreement between India and the US that many people never really use. This agreement is called Double Taxation Avoidance Agreement or DTAA. Purpose is simple. It helps ensure that the same income is not taxed twice unnecessarily. Under this particular agreement, eligible US tax resident may qualify for a lower withdrawing tax rate on certain interest income earned in India. The problem is that banks cannot automatically apply these benefits. They require specific documents from the account holder, that means you. And yes, if those documents are not submitted on time, the bank simply continues deducting the tax at the higher default rate. Many NRIs never really realize that this is happening until years later. And let me tell you what are these documents here. So generally, eligible account holders need to provide proof of their US tax residency, complete the required Indian tax forms, and submit a self-declaration confirming that they qualify for treaty benefit. Only after receiving these documents can the bank apply the reduced tax rate where it is applicable. And yes, there is another benefit as well here. Many US taxpayers are required to report their worldwide income to the Internal Revenue Service. If tax has already been paid in India, they may be able to claim the credit for that tax in the US, subject to applicable rule. Well, this can help reduce the overall tax burden and prevent paying tax twice on the same income. The important message over here, it is this: never assume that your bank has automatically given you every single benefit that is available under international tax treaties here. Well, a simple paperwork review, it could potentially save you a significant amount of money and your time as well. If you are an NRI with savings or fixed deposit in India, this is a good time to check whether your bank has all the necessary documents and whether you are receiving the benefits you may be entitled to. Let's go to Canada now. Canada has been one of the most popular destinations for Indians for many years now, right? Every year, thousands of young Indians, they move there with one dream: to complete their education, get a work permit, gain valuable experience, and eventually build a successful future. But Canada has now made an important immigration change that every international student should know about. It is a chance that could affect career plan, job timeline, and even legal status in the country. For years, many international students used a process called flag polling. It was simple and fast method to receive a post-graduation work permit or PGWP. In the meantime, students would travel to the Canada-US land border, briefly leave Canada, and then immediately return. Border officials could process their work permit on the same day, allowing many graduates to begin working almost immediately without waiting months for an online application. For thousands of Indian students, this became a popular and practical option. But you know what? That option is now over. Canadian authorities have officially ended flag polling for PGWP applicants. Students can no longer visit a land border to receive a same-day work permit. In fact, instead, every application must now be submitted through the official online immigration system. Anyone arriving at the border expecting immediate processing will simply be directed back to the online application process. And you know why Canada took this whole decision? Because according to Canadian officials, border crossing were becoming increasingly crowded because of flag polling. Well, immigration officers, they were spending valuable time processing work permit instead of focusing on border security and trade. US authorities had also expressed concern about using busy border crossing for administrative immigration work. As a result, both the nations wanted immigration application to move through the regular online system rather than at land ports of entry. The whole decision, it has changed the whole situation for thousands of graduates. Instead of receiving a work permit on the same day, many students may now have to wait several months before their application is fully processed. Now that naturally creates anxiety. Many graduates worry about joining a company on time, starting a new job, or planning their finances while waiting for the approval. However, there is an important protection that students should remember here. If a student submits a complete PGWP application online before the study permit expires, they may qualify for maintaining the status, provided that they meet all the legal requirements here. This allows eligible graduates to continue working while their application is being processed, helping many students unnecessary interruption to their career. But yes, there is also a warning here. Immigration officials are paying much closer attention to documentation than before. Missing language test result, incomplete transcripts, or maybe incorrect paperwork can result in an application being refused. And if that happens after a study permit has expired, the student could lose their right to work and may need to apply for a restoration of status, making the whole process longer, more expensive, and much more stressful. Now, ladies and gentlemen, our next story takes us to East Asia, where another military development is raising eyebrows across the globe. It is not about a new war. It is about new technology and a history that has shown whenever military technology changes, global politics often changes with it. China has revealed a new version of one of the most powerful ballistic missiles, the Dongfeng 26, also known as the DF-26. Military experts often call it the Guam killer or the carrier killer because of its reported eligibility to strike distant military targets, including large naval vessels. What has attracted attention is not just the missile itself, but its redesigned shape. Defense analysts say that the latest version appears to have a modified front section as compared to the earlier model. According to experts, this design could improve the missile's performance during high-speed fight and create more space for advanced guidance system. And if those assessments are connected, it could help the missile track moving targets with greater precision during the final stage of its journey. And why this is important? Because the Indo-Pacific has become one of the world's most strategically important regions. It is home to major shipping lanes. It is home to global trade route and the supply chain that supports many of the world's biggest tech companies. Every smartphone, every semiconductor, laptop, electronic device, it depends on some way or the other on stability across this region. So whenever military tension increase in the Indo-Pacific, governments begin strengthening their defense system. They invest more in missile defense, radar technology, cyber security, in fact satellite monitoring and advanced missile research. Companies working in these sectors often receive a greater attention from investors because defense spending usually increases during period of geopolitical uncertainty. This story is also a reminder that today's competition between major power, it is no longer limited to traditional weapons. Countries are investing heavily in hypersonic tech, AI, electronic warfare, and space-based surveillance here. Every technical breakthrough changes the strategic balance and it influences how nations prepare for the future conflict. Now, for India, these developments are worth watching. Why? Because the Indo-Pacific is also very important for India's trade, maritime security, and broader strategic partnership. Any major shift in military capability across the region has implications that extend far beyond East Asia. The world is definitely entering a new era where tech and national security are becoming deeply connected. The countries that lead in innovation may also gain an advantage in defense, diplomacy, and economic influence. That is why these announcements, they are followed so closely, not only by the governments, but also by businesses, investors, and global markets. Our next story takes us inside one of the world's most powerful military alliances. We are talking about NATO here. Usually, NATO members stand together on one major issue. But this time, two important American allies are looking at the same issue very differently. On one side is Turkey, a NATO member with one of the alliance's largest militaries. On the other side is Israel, one of America's closest partners in West Asia. And standing in the middle is the US President, Donald Trump, whose latest comments have sparked a fresh geopolitical debate, by the way. The controversy is over one of aircraft, the F-35 stealth fighter jet. Many defense experts consider it one of the most advanced fighter jets ever built. It is designed to avoid enemy radar, gather intelligence, and carry out missions deep inside the hostile territory. Because of its advanced tech, only trusted allies are allowed to operate it. Turkey was once an important partner in the F-35 program though. But in 2019, everything changed. Ankara decided to buy Russian-made S-400 air defense system. The US argued that operating Russian air defense system alongside F-35 fighter jet could compromise sensitive military tech. As a result, Turkey was removed from F-35 program and faced American sanctions. Now, years later, the United States appears to be reconsidering that position. President Trump recently made it clear that the US, not any other country, will decide who can buy American military equipment here. Responding to the concern raised by Israeli Prime Minister Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Trump reportedly said, and I quote, "Nobody tells me what we should be selling." He also described Turkey as a tremendous ally. Those comments immediately attracted international attention because they suggested that Washington may be open to restoring defense cooperation with Ankara. And why Israel is so concerned? Because military technology changes the balance of power in the region. Israel has long maintained one of the strongest air forces in West Asia. Now, if Turkey eventually gains the access to F-35 fighter jets again, then the strategic calculation of several countries could change. Israeli leaders believe that such a move, it could alter the regional military balance, making them more cautious about future security challenges. In the meantime, for the US, the whole situation it is more complicated. Turkey remains an important NATO member with a strategic location connecting Europe, Asia, West Asia. Well, here Washington also wants to maintain strong ties with Ankara while keeping the alliance united during a period of increasing global tension. Well, this whole story, it shows that international diplomacy is rarely simple. One decision about selling military equipment can affect alliances, regional security, and global defense market. It also reminds us that countries often balance strategic interests rather than taking sides permanently. Now, from military alliances, let's move to something that attracts millions of Indians living abroad every single day: the value of Indian rupee. A weaker rupee may sound like a bad news, but for many NRIs, it has also created an unexpected financial opportunity. Now, whenever people hear that Indian rupee is becoming weaker, the first reaction is usually negative. Be it anyone, you, me. Well, most of them assume that it means the economy is under a lot of pressure. Some worry about inflation. Others think that it simply makes life more expensive for them. But if you are an Indian earning in US dollars while supporting your family or investing in India, the story is not simple. In fact, for many NRIs, a weaker rupee can also create a financial advantage. While the Indian rupee has recently fallen to historic lows against the US dollar, that means every dollar earned abroad now converts into more Indian rupees than before. Simply put, the same salary in the US can now provide greater purchasing power when it is transferred to India. Now, let me explain you in very simple terms. Suppose an NRI sends about $10,000 to India. A year ago, that amount, it would have converted into fewer rupees. Today, because the dollar has strengthened against the rupee, the same transfer, it brings back significantly more money. Without earning an extra dollar, your family in India receives more purchasing power simply because of the exchange rate here. That is one reason why remittances from overseas Indians often increase when the rupee weakens. Many NRIs use this period to invest in property, in fact FD or other financial assets, because every dollar stretches further. In the meantime, Reserve Bank of India has also introduced measures that allow banks to offer attractive return on certain foreign currency deposit. Many NRIs deposit scheme provide the benefits of earning returns while reducing exchange rate risk, depending on the type of account chosen. Other deposit option that can continue to offer tax benefit under Indian law for eligible account holder. But there's another side to this story. Just because income is tax-free in India does not mean that it is invisible elsewhere too. Many Indians living in the US are required to report their worldwide income to the Internal Revenue Service. Foreign bank accounts and overseas interest income may also have reporting requirement depending on individual circumstances and applicable law here. This is why financial planning has become more important than ever before. A good exchange rate is only part of the picture. Understanding tax rule, choosing the right type of account, and complying with the reporting requirement are equally important to you. Well, for NRIs, today's currency market presents both an opportunity and responsibility. The opportunity is to maximize the value of every dollar that is earned abroad. Well, the responsibility, it is to remain fully compliant with both India and US regulations in the meantime. Because let's be honest here, smart financial planning is not just about earning more money here. It is about making every dollar work harder while staying on the right side of the law. And yes, if you're planning to travel between India and the US in coming weeks or months, this story is for you. For decades, passengers became used to of one simple expectation: book a ticket, change planes once in the Gulf if it is needed, then reach your destination on time. Today, that entire travel system has changed. Not because of bad weather, not because of technical problem, but because of geopolitics. The conflict between the US and Iran has created a major disruption across one of the world's busiest aviation corridor. Airlines are now being forced to avoid large parts of West Asian airspace, and that decision is affecting millions of passengers around the globe, including thousands of Indians traveling between India, North America, and Europe. In fact, the number shows just how serious the situation really has become. Ladies and gentlemen, according to information shared by India's Ministry of Civil Aviation, about 26,000 international flights has been cancelled up to July 20th because of the restrictions linked to the regional conflict. And that is not a small disruption. That is one of the biggest aviation challenges seen in recent years. The other problem is that airlines no longer have access to many of the routes they traditionally used. Airspace over Iran remains closed. Several neighboring regions continue to face restrictions. And on the top of that, Russian airspace has already become difficult for many international airlines because of the Ukraine conflict. Now, when you remove all these routes from the map, airlines are left with very few options. And you know what happens next? Aircraft are forced to take much longer route. Instead of flying through the shortest path, many flights now travel through southern corridor, adding both time and distance to every journey. Longer flights mean one thing, more fuel, and more fuel means higher operating cost. Airlines spend more money flying every aircraft. Eventually, that extra cost reaches passengers, and in other words, the conflict is quietly increasing the price of international travel. Even if you are sitting thousands of kilometers away from the battlefield, you still end up paying for it. But yes, higher ticket prices are only one part of the problem here. Many passengers traveling through major Gulf hubs like Dubai, Doha, Abu Dhabi, they're also experiencing longer delays. Flights arriving late, often causing passengers to miss connecting flights. Some travelers are waiting for hours before boarding another aircraft. Others have had their journeys extended by almost an entire day. Airlines are also facing crew scheduling problem, by the way, because pilots and cabin crew have legal limits on how many hours they can work continuously. And when one flight gets delayed, several others can also be affected. At the same time, demand for direct, non-stop flights between India and the US has increased sharply. Many passengers no longer want to risk missing connection through the Gulf here. As many people compete for a limited number of direct seats, ticket prices continue moving higher and higher. Well, here, simple economics is at work. Higher demand, limited supply, and higher fares. Now, you know what should you do here? Experts say that flexibility is becoming more important than ever before. If you must travel, avoid very short transit time. Choose flights that leave enough time between connections. Where possible, consider flexible tickets that allow date changes. And before flying, check whether your travel insurance covers delays caused by geopolitical events. Well, these small precautions could save both time and money if schedule changes unexpectedly. And yes, let's hop on to our last story tonight. Even as diplomatic talks continue and military tension remain high, Iran says another battle has been taking place. This time not in the air, not at the sea, but along with its own western borders. According to Iranian authorities, security forces recently carried out a major operation in Kurdistan province, close to Iran's eastern frontier. Officials say that they received intelligence about an armed group that had allegedly crossed into Iranian territory. Acting on that information, border guards and intelligence personnel launched an investigation to intercept the suspects before they could even enter the country. Here, Iran claims that when security forces stopped the group's vehicle, a gun battle broke out. According to them, 4 suspected people, they were no more during the operation. Authorities also say that they received weapons, ammunition, and hand grenades from the scene. But you know what has drawn the most attention is not the only operation itself. It is Iran's claim about who was allegedly behind it. Here, Iran says suspected network was linked to the group that Iran has previously accused of receiving support from the US and Israel. These allegations have not been independently verified though, but they once again highlights the deep mistrust that continues to shape relation between Iran and its 2 biggest regional rivals. Of course, it's not the very first time Iran has made such claims. Over the past few months, Iranian authorities have repeatedly announced operation against what they describe as espionage network, sabotage group, and armed organizations operating near the country's western border. Each new announcement is presented as evidence that Iran remains under constant security pressure. And at the very same time, the US and Israel have consistently taken a different view of Iran's regional activities here, accusing Tehran of supporting armed groups across West Asia. And that is why every new security incident quickly becomes part of a much larger geopolitical rivalry that has shaped the entire region. The truth is that wars today are no longer fought only with missiles and fighter jets. They are fought through intelligence operations, cyber attacks, border security, counter-terror operations, and information campaign. Many of these battles happen far from television cameras, but they still influence diplomacy, military planning, and international relations. That is why even a local security operation near one border quickly became an international story. Well, as long as tension between Washington and Tehran continues, incidents like these are likely to remain in the headlines. Whether it is diplomacy, whether it is intelligence, sanction, military preparedness, every development adds another layer to one of the most complicated geopolitical rivalries. And with that, we come to an end of today's Skyline. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching Skyline. I am Driti. Stay informed, stay aware, and I will see you in the next episode.